the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man at his time plays many parts. Welcome to Budco's Circuit Maker Virtual Festival and to our first event, All the World's a Stage, in which a cast of Budco actors and stalwarts will be looking at how the company has developed over the first 4 years of our existence and performing various scenes from the productions that we've been involved with during that time. I guess it's true to say that the roots of the company lie firmly in the performance of Shakespeare. Our first ever full-length production was an abridged version of Macbeth, performed outdoors at Moira Village, County Down, Northern Ireland, for an arts festival entitled Moira Calling. It was quite a production, set in a time of modern warfare with a large cast and a complex set, strewn with spent shells and ammunition boxes and surrounded by camouflage netting. Our arms dealer witches stoked a cauldron of hate with bundles of cash, and warlike Macbeth and his army fought in modern military fatigues with modern weapons. Those of you who know Macbeth know that it's one of Shakespeare's darker pieces, one of his darker productions, and it doesn't end well for Macbeth, and indeed it doesn't end well for his wife, Lady Macbeth. In the scene that you're about to see, Macbeth has just been told of the death of his wife.
What is that noise? Wherefore was that cry?
The Queen, my lord, is dead.
She should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word tomorrow. And tomorrow, and tomorrow, creeps in this petty pace from day to day, to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player who struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
We had the pleasure of taking Macbeth, the Scottish play, to the Accidental Theatre in Belfast and to St Bridget's and St Patrick's College in Claudy, where we performed to over 200 students and teachers, and they gave us a great reception.
Enough drama! Too much drama already!
It's the professor on TV.
Of course, it is not all this highfalutin Shakespeare stuff. One of the main things the Budco has been focusing on recently is the pure mental. This is a show aimed at 11 to 13-year-olds, encouraging them to look after their mental health. I am told it is on later in this festival. Ah, yes, and it is also available for free online to schools. Of course, they made a very wise choice when they asked me, Professor Hertz van Rentel of the European Foundation for Mental Health and Hairdressing, to host this show. Now, mental illness is very common amongst young people. Anxiety disorder, worrying a lot, is the most common type of illness to affect children and young adults. People with anxiety suffer from this fear of things or of situations to the point where it interferes with their daily lives. But there is good news. It can be treated, but we must open up about it and seek help. Anyway, enough of this serious stuff. I know what you really want is a story. The story of how I came from humble beginnings in a Bavarian village to international
Thank you,
fame.
Professor. I think.
Two households, both alike in dignity in fair Verona where we lay our seat. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventured, piteous overthrows do with their death bury their parents' strife. The fearful passage of their death-marked love and the continuance of their parents' rage, which, but with their children's end naught could remove, marks the 2-hour passage of our stage. The which, if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend.
Oh, she doth teach the torches to burn bright. Did my heart love till now, forswear its sight? For I ne'er saw true beauty till this night. If I profane with my unworthiest hand this holy shrine, the gentle sin is this: my lips to blushing pilgrims ready stand, to smooth that rough touch with a tender kiss.
Good pilgrim, you do wrong your hand too much, which mannerly devotion shows in this. For saints have hands that pilgrims' hands do touch, and palm to palm is holy palmer's kiss.
Have not saints lips and holy palmers too?
Aye, pilgrim, lips they must use in prayer.
Oh then, dear saint, let lips do what hands do. They pray, grant thou, lest faith turn to despair.
Saints do not move, though grind for prayer's sake.
Then move not, while my prayer's effect I take. Thus from my lips, by thine, my sin is purged.
Then have my lips the sin that they have took.
Sin from thy lips, O trespass sweetly urged, give me my sin again.
Romeo and Juliet, which we produced for schools and the public in 2018. Now, our two fine actors, Katarina and Andrew, weren't actually in that production, but they were in a very special production in 2019. Written specially for the Little Theatre, Chris Darcy's Border Pole was set in the fictional border town of Patingo.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. Hope you're enjoying the flight. We are currently cruising at a height of 37,000 feet and should be landing in Patingo in, well, sooner than you think. In the meantime, sit back and relax. Oh, and if any of the cabin crew are free, I could really do with a neck rub. I'll shut up now.
Some peace and quiet at last. And now I can read my good book. At least I think it's a good book. At the airport there were lots in them in the bargain bucket, so it means it must be very popular. No? It's called Border Pole. In the front it says that it's unexpected, bonkers, and very funny. Let's see if it can make me laugh. It's a new book, only written this year. And it says it will very shortly be turned into a play. What's this? Border Pole is a work of fiction. Names, characters, businesses, places, events, and incidents are either used in a fictitious manner or are the product of the author's imagination, or lack of it. Any resemblance to actual person, living, dead, or somewhere in between, or actual events is purely coincidental. Honestly, the author would also like to apologize in advance to the male population of both Upper and Lower Patingo, who we believe to be on the whole decent, honest and likable folks. a winky face emoji. Whereas the male characters in this story are all morons.
That border poll, it doesn't end well for some. In February 2019, we were asked by the Four Corners Festival to produce a rehearsed reading of Seamus Heaney's The Cure at Troy. Now, this is a translation of a 2,500-year-old play by Sophocles, which was set during the Trojan War. The cast was a group of local politicians, including Claire Hanna, Naomi Long and Martino Muller. They did a really good job for a sold-out audience in the penthouse of the Europa Hotel. The event was introduced by the BBC's William Crawley, and at the end, Michael Longley read his wonderful poem, Ceasefire. Sam Mahadeo is going to read a piece from The Cure at Troy, and you may recognise this section. It was quoted by President Bill Clinton during his first visit to Northern Ireland.
Human beings suffer. They torture one another. They get hurt and get hard. No poem, nor play or song can fully right a wrong inflicted and endured. The innocent in jails beat on their bars together. A hunger striker's father stands in a graveyard dumb. The police widow in veils faints at the funeral home. History says, don't hope on this side of the grave. But then, once in a lifetime, the longed for tidal waves of justice can rise up, and hope and history rhymes. So hope for a great sea change on a far side of revenge. Believe that further shore is reachable from here, and believe in miracle and cures and healing wells. Call miracle self-healing, the utter self-revealing, the double take of feeling. If there is fire on the mountain or lightning and storm, and a God speak from the sky, that means someone is hearing the outcry and birth cry of new life at its term.
Meanwhile, back with the Bard. Over a couple of years, 2018, 2019, we were very fortunate to produce an abridged version of Othello. This we took on tour around schools and colleges. And also we were able to take it for the first time across the Irish border to Dublin, to the oldest theatre in Ireland, which was the wonderful Old Smock Alley Theatre of Dublin. Now, playing to a savvy Shakespeare audience in Dublin might be quite challenging, but we're glad to say that they showed us a terrific reception.
That I have taken this old man's daughter, it is true. True, I have married her. The very head and front of my offending had this extent no more. Rude am I in my speech, and little breast with the soft phrase of peace. For since these arms of mine had 7 years pit till some 9 moons wasted, they have used their dearest actions in attented fields. And little of this great world can I speak more than pertain to feats of broil and battle, and therefore little shall I grace my cause in speaking for myself. Yet, by your gracious patience, I will a wronged, unvarnished tale deliver of my whole course of love. What drugs, charms, what conjurations, and what mighty magics for such proceedings I am charged withal. I won his daughter.
I hate the moor. And it is thought abroad that twixt my sheets he has done my office. I know not if 't be true, but I for mere suspicion in that kind will do as if for surety. He holds me well, the better shall my purpose work on him. Cassio's a proper man. Let me see now. To get his place, and to plume up my will in double knavery. How? How? Let's see. After some time to abuse Othello's ear that he is too familiar with his wife, he hath a person and a smooth disposed to be suspected, framed to make women false. The murs of a free and open nature that thinks men honest, that but seem to be so, and will as tenderly be led by the nose as asses are. I halved. It is engendered. Hell and night must bring this monstrous birth to the world's light.
As you know, our little theatre is based in East Belfast, and we have been blessed to have some very funny comedians and a few duff ones at our bi-monthly comedy club, the East Laughs. And here, ladies and gentlemen, at very little expense, is the legendary Belfast poet. I give you Mad Rab McGregor.
Now, they've built a big ship down in Harlands. She was made for to sell to the Turks, and they called in the yard's chief designers to design all the engines and works. Now, finally, the engines was ready, and they screwed on the very last part, and your man says, "Let's see how she runs, lads." And but Jesus, the thing wouldn't start. So they pushed and they pulled and they footered, and the engineer's faces got red. And the designer, he just stood there looking like and scratching the back of his head. Well, as they were pushing and footering, up danders old Jimmy Dalzell. Now, he had worked 20 years in the shipyard and 10 in the aircraft as well. So he pushes and he shoves and he mutters and he gets himself up to the front. And he has a good look round the engine and he gives a few tutters and grunts. Then he looks up at the foreman and he says, "Mr. Smith, do you know, should have left out the diagonal steam trap. How the hell do you think it would go?" Now the designer looked at the engineer, and the engineer looked at the hat, and they all whispered one to the other, "Diagonal steam trap? What the hell's that?" Now the foreman, not wanting to admit it, like, not knowing what this was about, he says, "Right enough, we're stupid, like, the diagonal steam trap has been left out." Well, in the meantime, old Jimmy had scarpered away down to throwing his beard, and the foreman come up and he says, "Jimmy, do you mind if I have a wee word?" He says, "Do you know that diagonal steam trap? I know it's been left out, it's bad luck, but the engine shop's very busy. Do you think you could knock us one up?" Jimmy was laughing his scorn off, for he had made it all up for a gag. He had seen what was stopping the engine. The feed pipe was blocked with a rag. So he shoves the old hands in the pockets and he says, "Aye, I'll give you a hand. Sure, I'll knock you one up in the morning and the whole bloody thing will be grand." So he starts to work early next morning and what he called a steam trap, an old tin box, a few bits of tubing and a steam gauge stuck on the top. And he welded onto the engine and he says to the wandering mob, "As long as that gauge stays at zero, the steam trap's doing its job." So he pulls a rag out of the feed pipe and he gives the oil engine a try. And but Jesus, she goes like a clappers. And he says, "There you are now." Now the ship was the fastest thing ever. So they sent her away to the Turks, but they told them that the steam trap was top secret and we're the only ones knows how it works. But the Turks, they couldn't keep their mouths shut. And soon the word got around and the Russians got very interested because them boys have their ears to the ground. So they sent a spy dressed as a sailor to take photos of Jimmy's steam trap, and they got them back to the Kremlin, and they all stood around looking at the snaps. Then the head spy says, "Mr. Kozgun, I'm damned if I know how that works." So they sent him straight off to Siberia, and they bought the whole ship from the Turks. But when they found out it was a cod lake, well, they couldn't admit they'd been had. So they built a big factory in Moscow, and they started turning out steam traps like mad. Then Kozgun, he rings up old Nixon and he says, "Yous think yous are great, but you'll find with our new Russian-made steam trap, we've got the whole lot of yous bait." Now Nixon, he nearly went harpic. So he decided to give Harlan's a call. Well, he dialed the engine shop number, but of course he got sweet bugger all. But finally, a call came through to our Jimmy in the midst of a terrible hush. It says, "Hey Jimmy, there's a call here from the White House." Jimmy says, "That's a shop in Portrush." Now they've built a big factory outside of Seattle, and it's turning out steam traps like hell. It employs 25,000 workers, and the head of it, Jimmy Dalzell.
Ladies and gentlemen, a rare treat. As part of our series, The East Laughs, we also, in between the comedians, were joined by some excellent local musicians, including the wonderful Ian McPherson.
I'm not going to Buffalo with you. That's just something that I could never do. You got your life and I got mine. Go ahead, baby, have a good time. I'm not going to Buffalo with you. It's too damn cold and I'm not buying. I've watched you shovel snow and know what you had in mind. But there's a train leaving tomorrow, won't cause me any sorrow. I'm not going to Buffalo with you. I'm not going to Buffalo with you. I've been staring out this window, wondering why it took so long to let go. The truth will play out in the end. The end is what this is, my friend. I'm not going to Buffalo with you. I'm not going to Buffalo with you. All my friends sound crazy. You and I aren't looking for the same thing. I'd take a chance, you know, but you know I couldn't stand snow. I'm not going to Buffalo with you. I'm not going to Buffalo with you. Everything with you is just a game. I ain't got the peace of mind to do it all again. Grab your brand new parka coat, I won't try to explain why. I'm not going to Buffalo with you. I'm not going to Buffalo with you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Tiny Tim here. And Mr. Charles Dickens wrote a story all about me. There were some other people in it, of course. My dad, Bob Cratchit, Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge, and some ghosts. But mostly it was about me. It was a sad story in some parts, and very funny in some parts. But it ends well. Here's a little bit with my dad being sad.
What are you doing, Cratchit? What's this?
Tiny Tim, if you can hear me from where you are, since you're passing,
Passing? Tiny Tim?
I wish to bring you comfort, my boy, wherever you dwell. I hope in a place of peace. But perhaps it is to give peace to myself. For you're my light in the darkness, little man. May I read to you as I used to? Only I knew where this was. He'd forgotten all about it. His book of treasures.
Treasures.
I've learnt them off by heart. I know them all now, every one of them. Worth more than all the money ever made, eh, Mr. Scrooge, sir? Oh, it's your heart, you see, sir. All battered and locked away. But you kept it, sir, even though you didn't know you did, sir. Even though you'd forgotten all about it. Some part of you, some tiny beaten part of you, could not bear to lose it. And that makes all the difference. You kept it, old Scrooge. And doesn't that give you hope for the whole rolling world? That a Scrooge can love stories, that a Scrooge can have a heart, even though he doesn't know he does. Doesn't he, Tiny Tim, my dear one? Well, what shall we read? I know. What about your favourite?
Alibaba.
Alibaba and the Cave of Treasures. And so we will. But we always like to read this bit first, don't we? This book is for you, my sweet darling boy. A book of treasures to guide your life. And if
I cannot remain with thee, as the doctors tell me I must not, then know how dearly I would do if I could. And how very nearly did I see this one Christmas with you, your very first Christmas, that I know now I must not. How many, many Christmases would I spend with you if I could? Just one more hour of life with you would be the greatest treasure, worth more than any earthly riches. But since I cannot, know that I will look over you and love you, as I have done from the first sweet breath you drew, and do now, and will so forever. My eternal blessings, your mother. 1777, Christmas.
So you was loved, Mr. Scrooge, even though you didn't know it all that time. She loved you, and you loved her, like all the Cratchits loved Mrs. Cratchit. Didn't you, sir?
I did. I do.
Lule, lule, thou little tiny child. Bye bye, lule, lule. Lule, lule, thou little tiny child. Bye bye, lule, lule.
So, ladies and gentlemen, there it is. All the world's a stage. This is the end of our first festival offering, but we hope that you'll stick with us for the rest of November and for many more excellent events. And to sing us out, once more, Mr. Ian McPherson.
Well, what happened to the Habsburgs? Guess I'll never know. I read about a lot of stuff that happened long ago. It sounded just like guesswork, so it strikes me so. What happened to the Habsburgs? Who cares? Let's rock and roll. Hope for the next century or so. You can blame the banks, the tanks, the cranks, blame it on the UFOs. The futurists use guesswork, so it strikes me so. Don't hold out much hope for not much but rock and roll. a million years. You can call it paranoia, man, they're playing with our fears. There is no doubt we're headed for drought, we're gonna burn up just like gold. When all you got is guesswork, thank God for rock and roll. What happened to the icebergs? What happened to the snow? When all we got is guesswork, thank Chuck for rock and roll. Thank you.
So folks, we hope you enjoyed that. Stick around for a little while because in a moment we'll be starting a Q&A, question and answer session. See you there.